Well, we certainly had an interesting weekend of NFL action, so let's take a look back at the week that was week 4 of the 2022 NFL season. It all started with a bit of a downer on Thursday night, and no, not just because the games are on Amazon Prime, but because of the injury suffered by Tua Tagovailoa. It really took the air out of the balloon on Thursday night, and the Bengals were able to overcome kind of that down feeling. It sucked the life out of the night. It really did. Bengals end up pulling to 2-2 with a 27-15 win over the Dolphins on Thursday night. Then we switch over to the weekend. We got the Sunday morning London game. And Will, as I call him, London Lutz, hits a 60-yard field goal in the fourth quarter and then gets put in a spot to kick a 61-yarder to send the game to overtime. And he gets the old dreaded double doink. Double doink. The Vikings moved to 3-1, holding off the Saints 28-25. Younghoe Koo had a 45-yard field goal late, and the Atlanta Falcons get past the Cleveland Browns 23-20. And that game, I'm sure, was about as boring as I just made it fucking sound. Carson's Commanders struggle again. Big surprise. Meanwhile, a bit of a pleasant surprise for Cowboys fans. Cooper Rush with his third consecutive win as a starter. Cowboys beat the Commanders 25-10. You might as well call it Detroit. You know why? Because it's just like a lesbian orgy. There's no real D to be found anywhere. Anywhere. Holy shit. This was something. Seahawks and the Lions get into a shootout. Seattle wins 48-45. Craziness. The Titans jumped on the Colts early, had enough to hold on for a 24-17 win. And Colts fans should really be pounding the drum about fire Chris Ballard, because at this point in time you got to look at him and say, like, how many times are you going to repeat the same dumb decision? Let's go for the washed-up veteran quarterback and assume that things are going to get any better magically. Ooh, good Lord. And I'll say this. It's never a good sign when you trust your punter and your kicker that you just signed off the street a day or two before the game more than you do your alleged young franchise building block quarterback. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Bears football. And it manifested itself Sunday in New Jersey, New York, whatever the fuck, who cares? Brian Daboll has the Giants now at 3-1 as they beat the Bears 20-12. And it was as boring of a game as I just kind of made it sound indeed. The Eagles, meanwhile, remain the NFL's only unbeaten team through 4 weeks. They overcame an early 14-0 deficit, ran off 29 consecutive points, have enough to get past the Jaguars 29-21. Mike Tomlin, what do you know? Finally goes to Kenny Pickett in the second half, who ends up with 2 rushing touchdowns. Imagine if you had that in a parlay. Good Lord. But the Jets win 24-20 with a late Breece Hall touchdown run. And imagine that, a Mike Tomlin coached team loses to a bad team at home. It wasn't just a Big Ben problem, apparently. The Buffalo Bills go down big early, but then rattle off 20 unanswered points to get past Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens 23-20. Maybe next time kick the field goal, just saying. Justin Herbert threw for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Chargers bounced back against the Texans. I almost said the Titans, sorry. Texans, 34-24. Lovey, you keep it up. You'll get that first win at some point. I promise you. I promise you. Kyler Murray had 2 touchdowns through the air, another one on the ground. The Cardinals coast pass Matt Fool's, Fool, Panthers, 26-16. Yeehaw. Aaron Jones and I almost said Corey Dillon. Fuck, I need some sleep. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon combined for 183 rushing yards. Corey Dillon has come back. He wants to put himself over the top with one more season in his 40s to try and get into frickin' Canton. But Mason Crosby hits the late field goal, and the Packers get past a pretty game Patriots team who was down to their third-string quarterback in overtime, 27-24. Josh Jacobs goes for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Devontae Adams with over 100 yards receiving. And what do you know? The Raiders get off the schneid. They get their first win of the year, 32-23 over the Denver Broncos. And at this point in time, is Russell Wilson even warming up in the microwave a little bit? Because he certainly isn't cooking. Sunday night action, the Chiefs jumped out from Jump Street, got out to a huge lead on Tampa, and they never really let up. got the primetime road win, 41-31. And then on Monday night, once again, the 49ers defense dominates the Rams offense. Deebo Samuel's going to Deebo Samuel. And here come the 49ers. They win 24-9. And people are going to pretend like Jimmy Garoppolo was some major factor in that. Oh, good Lord. In terms of winners and losers from week number 4, I'll start off with the winners, the Buffalo Bills. You were down 20 points early. You find a way to come back and win on the road. That's an impressive win. That's a championship contender type of win right there, because that's a game they should have been dead to rights that they had every reason to lose. The Philadelphia Eagles, you were down 14-0 early, come back like that and get the win. The Eagles team looks really, really good right now. And then the Seattle Seahawks. We are pretty confident they're not a good team, but they did just win on the road and score 48 points. They look very smart through 4 weeks. I mean, granted, it's a very, very small sample size, but Geno Smith through 4 weeks has looked much better than Russell Wilson. Argue against a wall, because you'll be wrong if you think otherwise. So the Seahawks get the win there, and yeehaw for all of that. In terms of some of the losers this week, the Denver Broncos. You're 2-2. You made that big, massive move for Russell Wilson, and it ain't looking good so far. Again, incredibly early, but yeah, should be just a little bit concerned there. You lost to the winless Raiders. John Harbaugh. It's 4th and goal. You got about 4 minutes to go. I understand the desire to want to get aggressive there, but at that point in time, sometimes the conservative play is the right play. Kick the field goal. Give yourself a lead. You can point to some of the decisions that Harbaugh makes. I love the aggressiveness. I love the gutsy nature, but at times it does cost his team, and I think it certainly did on Sunday. And then, of course, you've got the Chicago Bears, and you could just say, well, they're losers, and that wraps it up. But specifically, offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. Gutless Getsy himself. Put him up. I'm the offensive coordinator. Put him up. I got courage. I got dumb dicks on Twitter who think I'm not part of the problem in Chicago. Put him up. Put him up. I got courage. 3rd and 6, halfback dive. 3rd and 2, halfback dive into a 9-man front. Put him up. Put him up. I got courage. Holy shit. What a fucking bum. Ooh. Fields has sucked. The offensive skill talent sucks. The offensive line and pass blocking sucks. And you have an offensive coordinator that's failed to piece it together through 4 games. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call familiar, typical Bears football. In terms of some of the week 4 stars, quarterback, I'm going to look at Geno Smith. 23 of 30 for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had 49 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. Geno is maybe earning himself an opportunity, even if it's not in Seattle in the future. Somebody's going to continue to pay this man money, and somebody may give him a bridge starting opportunity next year. So good for him. And then Rashad Penny had 17 carries for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was a big key for the Seahawks as well in their 48-45 win over the Lions. And going back to that game, because it was an offensive bonanza, lesbian orgy, no real D to be found. T.J. Hawkinson with career highs. 8 receptions for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. Big game for the tight end position. When you talk about defense and special teams units that had great nights, you look at the San Francisco 49ers. 9 points allowed, 7 sacks, a couple of turnovers for us, and the pick 6 touchdown. I mean, they look dominant. With this 49ers team, you would say if this was 25 years ago in the NFL, you'd be looking at them as a Super Bowl favorite right now, because the offense just wouldn't matter as much. But it's a different era, but they're still a team that you don't want to sleep on, because that defense is legit. And then when I look at coaches, I got to go with Nick Sirianni. Here's a guy that is hiring by Philadelphia before the 2021 season, seemed to kind of come out of nowhere a little bit. A lot of people were surprised, number of critics of it. And all he's done is got his team in a spot where they're the lone unbeaten team in the NFL at not 4-0. Jalen Hurts is playing solid football. This Eagles team early on looks like the best team in the NFC, and Sirianni certainly deserves a lot of credit for that. And my 2-minute drill for week 4, talking about Tua and concussions. And look, if you thought in that game Sunday that he didn't have a concussion, you're just being delusional. You had a number of the Tua army going to Twitter and be like, the independent neurologist said that he didn't have a concussion, and that's why he got fired. How the fuck could you look at that and say that's a neck injury? Give me a goddamn break. Even more so, even if he said it was a neck injury and it wasn't a concussion, okay, I'll bite. Shame on the Miami Dolphins on a short turnaround on a Thursday night for throwing Tua back out there. You got to play the long-term game here. And even if that means you go with Teddy Bridgewater for a week or maybe even two, that's what you do. You sacrifice a game here for the greater good. You're the Dolphins right now. You were sitting at 3-0. Like, you're having patterns of trying to battle it out with the Buffalo Bills, potentially win the division, get a home playoff game. You don't want to risk that being all for naught because your quarterback gets knocked out for an extended period of time because you didn't fucking protect them. So we could debate for days about this or that, or whether what happened the previous Sunday was a concussion, just how bad the hit was on Thursday, the freaking fencing response. Like, all this shit doesn't look good. But the bottom line is, that was really, really incompetent behavior by the Dolphins organization. I'm really disappointed in Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer. They should have known better. I'm a fan of Mike McDaniel. Think he's a great coach. Think he was a great hire from Miami. But this was really stupid. You're potentially sacrificing the whole season to rush and hurry up and play Tua 4 days after an injury. That is moronic. Don't sacrifice the long term for an immediate return. Because guess what? You fucking lost the game anyways, and now you're without Tua for several weeks. Like, that was just stupid. It's stupid to think that he didn't have a concussion that previous Sunday. Come on, wake the hell up. What was even more ridiculous is not just the fact that he was trotted out there 4 days later, but that the Dolphins would potentially put him at risk on a short week like that. Why the hell would you do that? Hopefully they, as an organization, they don't pay the price too much for that dumb dick decision. But rest assured, it was a dumb dick decision. And they better hope it doesn't come back and bite them in the ass and ruin what could have been a really solid season for that team.